Further, no one denies the admirable fighting qualities of the Boers, nor, in general, their sense of honor. However, those Boers fighting in the northern Transvaal, in commando groups, are outlaws, renegades, often without any recognized form of control.
So, why do you think Hancock shot the missionary Visser? Was that his name? Visser? The German missionary?
No, his name was Heese.
Heese?
Yes.
Why do you think Hancock shot him?
He shot him because he was a witness to the execution of those 8 Boers and their 3 black attendants. Because the Reverend Heese came up to Elam because of his friend Varmeyer, who was a school teacher and who owned a shop in what was then Potgietersrust. And he'd had a botched thyroid operation at some other hospital or whatever it was in Pretoria. So Heese said he knows of this mission hospital here in the far north that will probably be able to attend to his problem. So they boarded the train at what was then Potgietersrust, Mokopane today, and they got to Pietersburg, what is today Polokwane, and there they got one of these little 2-wheeled, what we call a spider, little cart, not a spider, something like that. Anyway, and he brought him up here to Elam Hospital. They obviously overnighted along the way somewhere, and he left this. His name was Craig. We never know if his surname or his first name was Craig, but we just know him as Mr. Craig. And he left him there, and Heese then came into town at that circle, just down the road from the circle on the right-hand side is the Berlin Mission Society, and Heese stayed there. Then, after 2 days, he got a message to say that this guy had died. So he went back to Elam, attended to the funeral proceedings, that's one of our shop vehicles, and attended to the funeral. And when he left, when he was at the hospital, there was a wagon with 8 Boers sitting on it, and Morant was there, and he went to talk to one of them because on that wagon was a guy called Varmeyer from Potgietersrust. That's where the Varmeyer comes in. Varmeyer, who was Heese's good friend, and he went to talk to him, and Morant said to him, "You get away from those prisoners, otherwise you'll join them on the wagon."
That's right. Yeah.
And then, so then the wagon went away, and then the Reverend Heese went to the mission house. I'll show you the mission house. It's a big double-story place of the Swiss Mission Society, where he had spent 1 or 2 nights to go and get his belongings and to say goodbye and thank you. And he was then a little bit delayed. So when he then proceeded to a point where, unfortunately, I can't take you to where that grave is because it's on a farm that's now got a great big security fence around it. We can't get in there.
Right.
But when Heese arrived at the site, and there were these bodies lying, including Varmeyer, his friend, and also the black attendants, he saw this, and the guys who were in charge there, and I'm not sure whether Morant was there that day, but anyway, they said to Heese that before he leaves this area, he's got to go to Captain Taylor's office, the BAID office, to renew his travelling permit, which he did, and that delayed him even more. So when he went off, Hancock said to Morant was there, because he said to Morant and Captain Taylor, "That guy's going to be a problem to us, because he's just seen what's happened, or he saw the result of what happened." So
that's kind of skipped over in the film, isn't it?
Yes.
All we see is the missionary talking to the Boer prisoners, and Morant says, "Stay away from them." Yeah. And then someone goes back to Morant and says he's at them again, and that's all the explanation we get is why he's executed, is that he disobeyed orders or he spoke to Boer prisoners.
Right. Now, in the movie, the one that we directed here, that Louis Shangon and I, when I say directed, we were used as consultants on that movie. We said, hang on guys, you're doing it all wrong. The missionary and his Ndebele driver were in what was called a Cape cart. A Cape cart had a little canvas thing over the back with a tiny little window. Some of them had a little window in. It wasn't a Cape cart because it came from the Cape. It was a regular, a little passenger vehicle, if you want to call it. They wanted to shoot him from the back, and we said no. He was shot from the front. And his father, who came from, I think it was called Riversdale in the Cape, his father still wrote a letter to Colonel Hall requesting permission for the British Army to assist them with this, because they thought that there was murder, because he was told that his son was shot through the one hand as though he had put his hands up to protect himself from this enemy fire. So anyway, that was where we also chipped in and said, not because of the letter, but in the movie we said that they couldn't have shot him from behind because he was shot from the front. He had to be from behind some rocks. Now I've been taken to a place a few times on a guy's farm. We can't get there anymore now. The late Pug Henning. We're going to the Henning's farm, but not onto the one that they've recently sold that one. And Pug, we called him Pug, Arthur Henning, who was about my age. He's died some years ago. And we'd go along on this sort of a boundary line, and he'd say, you see these rocks here? My father, whenever we came along here to go to the Waterport railway station to deliver something or collect something, my dad would say, this is where they shot the missionary. So the missionary was obviously shot from the front, and probably Hancock, he overtook them on the horse, went past, and then obviously hit his horse off the road, and he himself took aim over the rocks. So
Hancock's alibi at the time was he was having sex with a Boer woman. Is that?
Yes, he was having it on with Mrs. Shiel, with Magdalena Shiel,
right?
Whose house I could take you to, but there's nothing left other than the foundations.
Sure.
And it's on a bad road. Yeah. But Colonel Shiel, no, not Colonel, he called himself a captain, he called himself all sorts of things. He was the architect. He came to this country with all sorts of military fantasies that he had, because he grew up in a town, I think it was called Bad Reichenau or something like that, and he said that the Black Hussars, the regiment called the Black Hussars, the Germans, were right next door to his house, so he was involved there. How true that was, we will never know. But anyway, that Shiel, he sold his skills to the Pretoria government, who wanted to build a big prison in Johannesburg. That was to do with all what we call the outlanders, who were gold mining and who were protesting because Paul Kruger wouldn't give them citizenship. This was all before the Anglo-Boer War. He wouldn't give them citizenship, and he wouldn't allow them to manufacture their own dynamite and all sorts of things like that. And he was terrified that these guys were ultimately going to take over the whole gold mining industry. So this Captain Shiel, at one time he called himself a colonel, briefly. Adolf Shiel suggested, I don't know if he suggested it to Paul Kruger or to whoever the Department of Works were, and he said, instead of building just a prison, why don't we build a fort? Now that became known as the fort in Johannesburg, a massive, beautifully constructed building, which is today Constitution Hill. That is where you go to Constitution Hill today, you'll see that whole building. You'll see where a whole lot of our political prisoners spent a lot of time. So that was him. But then the same Shiel started having it off with one or two of the officers' wives, so they banished him. It was literally a banishment. They banished him to this place called Rosbach, which was also named after one of the Prussian wars or something like that, Rosbach, where he built this massive home, beautiful big place with a veranda all the way around, which actually had crenellations. And some way in fact, Professor Louis Shangon, my good friend, showed me a photograph, and he said, look at this gun, this artillery piece that Shiel had on his veranda.
Wow.
And that photograph has unfortunately disappeared. Louis says you took it, and I say you took it back, and you put it into a slip of folder or whatever. Anyway, that photograph is gone. So Shiel came up here, but when the Anglo-Boer War broke out, he rushed off. He was at Elandslaagte with the German commando who fought on the Boer side. Right. He commanded the German commando.
Wow.
And he was wounded. He was wounded in, I can't remember if it was the left or right thigh, at Elandslaagte. And he went back. He was almost like a medical evacuation. He went back to Germany for treatment to his leg. And you can actually see, if ever you go through a series of photographs of Shiel, you'll see him in this fictional military uniform of his. But you'll also see, after he was wounded, that he had that tendency in the photographs. I think I've seen it on 2 photographs only, where he rests his leg against the chair leg or against the armrest of the chair. Where there's one picture where he's actually got his dress sword that he's resting his leg on. That same shield. So he never came back here. But while he was away, Hancock was visiting Mrs. Shield, and he used that. She actually testified in his favor.
Yes.
At the court martial that he was visiting her that day.
Yeah.
So there was a lovely follow-up that I had one day, some years back. Inga phoned me. She always phones me if there's something sort of exciting in the pipeline. She phoned me. She said, "You're going to have fun tomorrow." I said, "Oh, is that so?" Yeah, I knew about this story. She said, "There's a Heese family, husband and wife. The Heese family, not here. The German guy, Shiel. There's a Shiel family. There's a Shiel family here, and she has asked if she can travel with you because she wants to record what you're going to tell them." So I said, "That's fine." So off we went, and they asked me a couple of questions, and I was able to tell them about their 2 sons. One of them had joined the Brits. Adolf Jr., I think his name was. He joined the Brits, and he was actually present the night that Hall, Colonel, not Hall. What am I talking about? That Frank Elon and Hunt were shot dead. Right. He was there that night commanding the Mujaji warriors. I think that was Adolf Jr. Then there was another son who was shot by the Boers at, I think, Malopo, somewhere on the Malopo River. There was a skirmish there. So I told them all this, and I also told them about, this is the place where Magdalena Shiel was, and she was entertaining Hancock. So there was quite a group that day, and when we drove back, I said, so whatever his name was, I forget his name, this guy. I said, so what are you going to do? I've told you as much as I can about what happened here. And he was quiet for a moment, and he scratched his ear or his nose or something. He says, "I think I do a DNA test to see if I've got any Australian blood in me." Oh, I'll never forget that. That was classic.
That's brilliant.
But that was just where the mist sort of starts on the mountain.
Yeah.
There's a road that goes over there, and the Shiel's home, Rosbach, is up on that road. But as I say, if there was something to show you, I'd gladly show you. All there is now is a ruin. They've stolen the bricks and the corrugated iron, and everything is gone. So we won't be going there. But it's just over where the mist is on the mountain, over the distance.
And Hancock would have ridden from Elam over there.
From Fort Edward.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we get to Fort Edward, there's a monument there which actually shows a little bridle road.
Yeah.
With well, I say road, probably a pathway for a horse, which was very much a shortcut, because Fort Edward, that we are going to on the way home, Fort Edward, I'll point out now where the blue gum trees are. You might see it now. I don't think so. I think I'm too late. I should have pointed it out to you. It's up on the hill.
All right.
You can see those Seligna plantations. No, it's out of sight now, but it's about in that direction that I'm painting. Fort Edward, I'm talking now of the Bushveld Carbineers, their base.
Yeah.
Fort Edward's probably about 5 or 6 k's from Elam Hospital.
Okay.
We call this area Elam.
Yeah.
One of the reasons was that this is where this mission hospital was, and it's still there. It's not a mission hospital anymore. It now belongs to the government.
Is this where Lovejoy was, or Love Grove? Oh yeah.
Yapping dogs around.
That's what you need.
Them probably 4 or 5 who lived with the goats in their corral at night, and then we spent the days with the goats.
I'm surprised there's still litter. Like there's a bottle there. I thought we're in the middle of nowhere.
No, there's litter everywhere. Everywhere. We are a terrible nation for litter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, as we were leaving Port Edward, there were all those bales on the side of the road.
Yeah, what's in that?
That's recycling. That's one guy who's seen the light.
Black plastic bags.
All sorts of things, yes, and tins and whatnot. Don't stick them in.
Yeah.
So Bayers, he camped somewhere here because with a metal detector, this peasant guy who's on the farm, we obviously didn't know to be there to meet us. Gerrit Hendricks, he had a metal detector that he borrowed from somebody when he was still at school.
Yeah.
And he found all sorts of things around here.
Yeah, right.
That indicated that somebody had camped here, you know, like a pocket knife and a spoon.
Yeah.
was so low.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the scene where that
This is
mural is painted.
Yeah, this is the final one. And then the Reverend Heese, as far as we can make out, he was killed somewhere down in this valley, not near that road. It was closer to the road we're going to go back to.
Yeah.
Down there in the valley, there's a power line. You can't see it from here, but when we drive under that power line, I'll show you.
Somewhere to my right. So sort of over there was where the Reverend.
The inscription on the Heese road.
Well, I filmed it.
Oh, okay. Because there's a German text there as well.
Right.
So, Jerry, that's
fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, any more, and my head would start, pounding.
You don't know how many times to life at the Onderstepoort Veterinary Centre.
Oh, yeah.
A wonderful person. It was her grandfather. This was her grandfather. And his unnamed Ndebele driver, who I believe his name was Silas. We've managed to find it at a. And this is the family that was paid compensation, not by the British government, but by the British Army. They were paid compensation, and as I say, to me that's an indication of admitting.
Well, you say presumably by the British government. So.
This was before
he was never found guilty. Hancock.
Well, Hancock had that letter, had that information become known during the court-martial, he would have been found guilty. But you know, he wrote a confession, which somehow somebody, one of the officers said, don't show that to the court-martial guys.
Right.
So for some other reason, that came out in one of the accounts or the letters that I got from. I don't think I included it because it was after that I managed to get one or two comments written by members of the court-martial.
Yeah. Of
the sort of judiciary, and it was mentioned there that there had been talk of a confession made by Hancock, which they hadn't seen.
Right.
So Professor Marie Smuts, I think it was her two aunts who were the children of Carl. His name was Carl Heese, and I don't know what his wife's name was. They were sent with that compensation grant that they were given. They were sent to a university in Germany.
Oh wow!
And so at least something positive came out of that, if you can call it positive. Yeah, I suppose so. But there must have been probably 20 or more of the Heese descendants here that day.
Wow!
It was very encouraging.
Fantastic. Anyone from the German government here?
No. You know, that is like that William Eagle's grave. Somebody said to me not very long ago that at one of the big battlefield cemeteries of